New console, new games. Can we look at what Pokemon did on the Nintendo Switch to then turn and predict what we might see on the Switch 2? I think we can, and by we I mean Arlo and I. Yes, Arlo is here too. Say hello.
Hello, and I also agree that we can.
Predicting things is like your jam, right?
I like to do it.
It's always fun also to look back and realize just how wrong you were. Because honestly, we don't have uncles that work at Nintendo, but it's always fun to treat this as more like a wish list. This is what I wish will happen. And look, you can look back and say it's an educated wish, you know?
It's win-win. It's always fun. It's almost more fun knowing that you're probably going to be wrong, because then every once in a while you get one right. And then you just feel that awesome.
Exactly. So basically, I have all of my ideas. I'm going to tell you them, and I want you to interrupt me as much as reasonably possible to tell me how right or wrong you think I am. And also just tell me any ideas you have based on the things I say, because banter.
Banter.
Because banter.
And you know what? This is a really great combination. Here we have a Pokemon expert who has dived really deep into all of the lore and has really great ideas. And then we got a guy who's like the most casual Pokemon fan in the entire world, possibly. I have no idea. I got nothing. I didn't prepare anything. He told me he wanted to do this video. I don't even know what we're doing here. 18.
You think 18?
18. There you go. 18 Pokemon games. Well, I mean, that would be including spin-offs.
Oh, that's fair.
Write that down.
I shall, right now. 18. So, I'm thinking we just go chronologically. This year, Legend ZA comes out, and while there will probably be a split in its reception, and the community won't exactly agree on if its real-time combat worked out well or not, it will still wind up a commercial success, obviously.
Probably. Correct.
Both on Switch and Switch 2, and I have a feeling it will probably be the only game to release simultaneously on both.
I think so, too. Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, because by the time another one comes out, the Switch 2 will have been established for around a year.
Yeah, and they're going to want to incentivize, because it is Pokemon. It's not like totally third party. Like it is basically a Nintendo thing. They want to incentivize sales of the new thing. So yeah, this is the one we're going to get.
For sure. But its success will definitely lead the Pokemon Company to order another one in 3 to 4 years.
Definitely.
But while that's being worked on, we'll of course get the next mainline Pokemon games, Generation 10, which I honestly think are a lot closer than other people think. I'm thinking next year.
I think it's basically a guarantee.
November.
I think it's just looking at the timeline.
Yeah.
They've been doing like 3 years between them. I think absolutely new console generation, next Pokemon generation next year. It's a given IMO.
November 2026. Plus next year is a huge year for Pokemon. It's the franchise's...
Oh yeah.
The franchise is turning 30.
And as we all know, if Pokemon has a deadline they want to hit with their game, they're gonna hit that deadline. They're not gonna delay the game. They're gonna hit that anniversary year.
No matter what. And the merch. There's gonna be so much 30th anniversary merch, like there is for every other anniversary.
Oh, so much. So much.
And they gotta have a new game to push all that merch.
Gotta have a new game.
But
exactly.
On top of it being the franchise's 30th, it's also the 10th anniversary of Pokemon Sun and Moon. And
oh, really?
I think that Sun and Moon connection is part of why the rumor for the Gen 10 games is that it's going to be watery and tropical. Tropical and watery.
Watery and tropical. Even even more water. Pokemon's gonna start adding even more water. They're taking a big risk.
Yeah, they're gonna utilize the Switch 2's power to render big water, beautiful water, ocean water, to do anything.
They will
besides...
push the limits.
Pokemon water has just
push the limits of how much water Pokemon can have.
It's just been a blue JPEG this whole time, but they're gonna they're gonna make it real finally and like bring back the dive mechanic from Gen 3.
Oh yeah, that was a thing, wasn't it?
Yeah, and so I'm thinking the rumored name is Pokemon Wind and Wave.
Whoa.
And I've got a good feeling that it's going to be one of these 5 locations, and I'll just list every watery place on Earth, I guess. It'll be based on either Greece, New Zealand, Okinawa, Southern California, or, dare I say, somewhere around the Caribbean or Southeast Asia or Australia or Japan.
Okay, it's good options. Those places have water. I can confirm. I know enough about those places to know they're pretty watery.
The Sandwich Islands.
That's the one. That's the winner.
Absolutely. But I feel like, considering the way leaks have been happening in Pokemon lately, that they're probably going to want to market this game in a similar way that they did Sun and Moon. A whole summer of new trailers and information constantly trickling in, to a point where many people will say it's too much. But hey, they're, like I said, they're probably sick of the Pokemon leaks, and information can't be leaked if it's all public anyway.
Yeah, that's basically what Smash had to do. Like, he was, he's like, okay, this is gonna get spoiled anyway. We're outside of the era now where you get a game and there are secrets while you play it. So just get the info out there. It's a part of the marketing. So yeah, I agree. They probably will.
Big hype.
Big hype.
Drive that hype engine.
Hype means sales.
Now, hey, I gotta say, Switch 2 in hand feels pretty good, but you know what feels even better? The protection that comes with today's sponsor, the Switch 2 Kill Switch case, which, no, does not kill your Switch 2. Rather, it makes your Switch 2 slay. That was easily the most pleasant screen protector application I think I've done, and it comes with a second one, just in case. I remember most, if not all, Switch 1 cases did a good job protecting it, but it came at the cost of locking the Joy-Cons in.
Yeah.
But that's not an issue here. The Joy-Cons have their own little protective cases that maintain their detachability, while upgrading their ergonomics and grip. I do honestly feel like the whole system feels better with this. And don't worry about dock compatibility, because they come with dock adapters, so you won't have to finagle your case off every time you want to dock the system. And it doesn't remove your ability to use the kickstand either. And there's also a travel cover to protect the front of it while it barrel rolls in your bag. And it's got these storage spots for games. It's just a good product. I'm very happy with this D brand. So there will be a link down below, both in the comments and the description. And this thing is probably never coming off of my Switch 2. So now then, next prediction. I think a year as big as a 30th anniversary can't just have one new Pokemon thing, even if that new Pokemon thing is a whole new generation. So I think early 2026 we'll see one of two things. Either the release of Pokemon Champions, which right now has no release date, but a game that simulates battles and features all returning gimmicks sure feels like a good way to celebrate a major anniversary, you know?
It does. It does. Yeah, I could see, yeah. And that would mean that we'd probably get new information about that during like a presentation sometime this year, you think?
Absolutely. If it doesn't come out next year, I'll be surprised. If not, it'll definitely be like a 2027 thing, and they will have information this year.
Yeah, I could see it in the spring. I could see it. Like, in fact, I could imagine Pokemon Day next year basically giving us like either the big reveal or even like the final trailer, and then releasing not too long after that.
Also, how about finally getting a console port of Pokemon Trading Card Game Live? A port of that to Switch 2 might be a good idea. It's a digital free-to-play recreation of the main trading card game. Right now, it's only available on PC and mobile devices, which seems strange to me, though controlling the game primarily with a standard controller analog stick just sounds counterintuitive. But the Switch 2? It's got those mouse controls.
It's got the mouse controls. It does. Do you think that I haven't really followed that game in particular, but TCG Pocket is such a big thing now. Do you think there's a chance that they're just going to want to focus on that?
Probably not, because I imagine while TCG Pocket is more popular, it's the non-physical competitive meta space.
Okay, yeah, I know very little about it, but it makes sense.
But speaking of those mouse controls, I think what may be my boldest prediction. So next year, like I said, we're celebrating the 30th anniversary and a 10th anniversary of Pokemon Sun and Moon, but I think a 20th anniversary will be seen here too, especially considering the Switch 2 will be a year old, still in its infancy, and we all know how the early years of Nintendo consoles tend to feature games that heavily utilize a console's new gimmick. And this new gimmick, the Joy-Con's mouse controls, is the perfect answer for bringing Pokemon Ranger to modern audiences.
Pokemon Ranger.
Yes.
Please remind the audience, not me. I know, I remember exactly what that is. Please remind everyone what that is.
So, 20 years ago, as of next year, Pokemon Ranger came out, and the whole idea of the game is that you are a Pokemon Ranger. Essentially a park ranger, but with Pokemon, and you use the DS's stylus to draw circles around Pokemon to temporarily catch them to help you on your quest. And the challenge is knowing which Pokemon will help you given your situation, and while attempting to capture them by circling them, they can attack the circle and make you have to start over again. So you have to draw your circles in lines strategically.
Interesting.
And it's really, really fun, honestly. I loved the first one. But it's a format that obviously would not feel right with a controller.
No.
at all, or even your finger on a modern touchscreen. It just wouldn't feel right.
But a mouse?
Yeah, they have the mouse functionality, which is already how most people play Pokemon Ranger on emulators today, because it's the only other good-feeling analog.
Yeah, that makes sense.
So, if there was ever a time to go back to Pokemon Ranger, it's now, and the best time to announce it would be on an anniversary direct, be it the 1-year anniversary of the Switch 2's announcement or its release. And the game would release probably just a month or two after that, over summer maybe. Really just to show off that the console's new feature once again.
Yeah, do you see it being like kind of a small like eShop release, or kind of like a double A kind of title, or like what?
That's a good question. If they were to like just remake it, I could definitely see it being a cheaper eShop title, or no, if they gave it like a whole remake treatment or a new one, either way they'd be trying to charge as much as they could for it.
It's true. Yeah, it does seem very like DS minigame-y, so it is hard for me to believe they'd go too high with it. I don't think it's going to be like a boxed kind of thing.
I could see it being a digital-only game, now that you mention it. I hadn't thought of that, but that's a good point.
Especially if it's kind of releasing along these other bigger games, it would make sense to have it be kind of like a smaller supplemental thing. Just more stuff for the anniversary.
But then again, how many people actually remember it?
Yeah, I don't know. Maybe they'll just make it a free-to-play game. That's what it'll probably be.
You gotta buy your energy to draw circles.
Yeah, exactly. And so it's something we can see all the updates on every single Pokemon Presents forever.
Ew.
It'll be the new Pokemon Cafe.
Oh, don't monkey's paw this.
I want this to be good. So do you think that will be the total number of Pokemon games next year? Because you're right, it is a very big anniversary. Is that like, do you see them doing too much beyond that?
I wouldn't see more than 3 new games. But I could definitely see ports, bringing over Pokemon Cafe and such to the Switch 2 with like new graphical updates.
Yeah, so there's another question for you. I mean, and I know we're talking about the whole entire generation here, so I know we still have time. We're gonna hooked on the anniversary, but there have been a bunch of rumors about like classic collections or something. Do you think that's the kind of thing that we'd see for a really big anniversary?
I want to say yes, but at the same time, it's been 30 years and they still haven't.
Yeah, they put like red and blue on 3DS, and that was like, all right, we're done. That's all you get.
Yeah, like 25 is also a really big number. It's a quarter century, but they did.
Yeah.
Wait, was that when they did the red and blue on 3DS?
Maybe. I can't even remember if it was an anniversary thing.
I'm going to look it up right now. It was the 20th anniversary they did that. So, yeah, that was 10 years ago.
Oh, wow, that long ago. Okay, so 10 years, maybe we get yellow?
That's a good point, though. 30 is another nice, round, solid number. It's no 25, but I could definitely see them maybe just doing the same thing, but with gold and silver. But of course, the more popular option would be just, here's a collection of classics, like all the Game Boy and Game Boy Advance and DS games, all in one place.
Yeah, it would be nice. I really don't know if it's ever gonna be in the cards. I don't know if they are ever gonna, because they don't want us to play the old games. They want us to keep buying the new games.
It would be a good incentive for the Nintendo Online, though, if it was an exclusive for that.
Ooh, yeah, wow. Yeah, it would be.
But, of course, after such a busy year, I definitely feel like there would be a big lull in 2027. I do feel like a new Smash Brothers is definitely in the works for the Switch 2. It'll probably be
I hope so.
early first quarter of its lifespan release, and so maybe in 2027 we'll get a trailer that reveals that Gen 10's fully evolved grass starter will be joining the roster. Or, if the Ranger game does well enough, a Pokemon Ranger, a master grappler who has tiny Pokemon friends to help with up-close attacks, and she even sends out Pokemon Rosalina and Luma style, or like Pac-Man's Hydrant, but it's a small water type, throwing Joltik to stick at enemies like Pikmin.
All right. I don't know if I see it, but I like the idea.
I think it's a good idea for a never-ever character.
A never-ever character?
Yes, but otherwise, it's things like that. A year of updates, mostly. A proper cafe, new night port, some Pokemon for Alarmo, if that's not abandoned by then.
So, but don't we generally get one major Pokemon release every year, whether it's, now it's kind of like between mainline, remake, and Legends is kind of like, I don't know, they might just continue that as like the official spin-off every 3 years series. Like, how does that look for that year? Do we get a remake?
I feel like we wouldn't get anything that big, especially because with the way graphics
the DLC,
now,
of course.
Yeah, I was about to get to that. But
I forgot,
because of the way like graphics are now, a small indie developer that is Game Freak will not have as much speed when it comes to developing. But towards the end of the year, towards the end of 2027, the first DLC would definitely happen. Probably a simpler one, bringing you to a nearby island with some different vibes. DLC 2 would promise to bring us somewhere with a completely different biome, much more inland to allow access to more varied kinds of Pokemon, but that wouldn't come out until maybe the following year, midsummer 2028 at the latest.
Now, you're proposing something very interesting here, because I was kind of assuming that, anytime you get a mainline title, that the holiday season the next year would essentially, like, the DLC for the previous one is kind of like the holiday title. But generally, what they have been doing with the last two is releasing the first chunk earlier in the year and then the second chunk later. So are you saying that it's going to be like a smaller chunk the following year, and then the year after that early on, we get the bigger one? But then does that mean that we're getting another different title at the end of that year? Like, you don't think it's going to be like cleanly holiday to holiday to holiday?
Could be. Or maybe I just didn't think of that.
Yeah, no, I mean, you bring up an interesting point, though. It is true that, like, they are going to have to make their games look a bit better, at least a tiny bit. They're not going to want to. But does that mean potentially that their output is going to slow down at all? I kind of want to say probably not, because I would hope, you can't put anything past them, but I would hope that they would just kind of increase the amount of people working on these games. I imagine they would still want to hit those, like, the holiday slot each year, but I don't know. You think they might have to slow down?
I'm definitely on the fence about it, because it's more work.
It is more work. They don't like doing work, do they?
Well, yeah, they gotta combat that crunch culture.
That's true. They like to take it easy.
It's been a big movement the last few years of getting rid of crunch culture.
It is good for them. Good for them, taking their time and then releasing anyway, even if they didn't finish.
But yeah, I would see either DLC 1 early summer and then DLC 2 for the holidays. But maybe if 2028 needs more stuff, they would delay one of the second DLC to early 2028.
They could. I don't know. I really don't know. And that's the funny thing is, like, so far they seem to be really good about hitting those deadlines, but, like, you never know. And it is true, every new console generation, it's taking that much more, like, work to put into each title, each new generation. Will the time finally come when they're like, you know what, we just have to delay the darn thing? I don't know, it could happen.
But between Sword and Shield and Scarlet and Violet, there were quite a few spin-off games, big and small. There was the release of Cafe Remix, new Pokemon Snap, Pokemon Unite, but the most surprising to a lot of folks was Pokemon Mystery Dungeon Rescue Team DX, a complete from the ground up remake of Red and Blue Rescue Team.
Oh yeah.
Though, unfortunately, it did really terribly for a Pokemon game, like both critically and commercially.
Was it not critically well received?
So I kind of, yeah, it was. I mean, fans of the series say it's good because they're fans of the series, but, like, the average review score is like 6 out of 10.
Really? That's surprising.
At least in the one Google search I did.
Yeah.
The one Google search and then the scroll through a bunch of them, there was just a bunch of 6s and 7s.
That's really interesting.
A couple 5s.
Yeah, and I know this is almost a separate topic, but yeah, like I'm working on a video right now about, like, games that didn't perform very well, and it is kind of amazing how, like, Pokemon sells so many copies, and yet the spin-offs is just kind of like, I don't know, like they do not reach the same audience generally.
Yeah, and I think the bad sales on its own is enough to keep them from attempting it again anytime soon. But while I doubt it, I have hope, because the next games in line are the Mystery Dungeon Explorers games, which are widely considered to be the best ones in the series, and personally, I feel that Explorers of Sky has the best writing the Pokemon franchise has ever seen, to date even.
Really?
But
Wow.
sales are what matter most, and the remake didn't even sell 2 million copies, meaning it barely sold more than half of what Blue Rescue Team on its own sold. Let alone Blue and
Yeah,
Red.
I mean,
Like, it's really
that
bad.
is a pretty dramatic drop. Yeah, and at the same time, though, that game had to have been pretty darn cheap to develop. So maybe it was still worth it? We can kind of hope.
It definitely looks cheap to develop.
Which probably contributed to the sales. I personally know someone a kid who would love to play it, but it's $60 and it never goes on sale, and it's just like, like there's other games to play.
I'll never forgive the Ekans in that game. It is so ugly. And he's like a main secondary character. And he's just like, I am a snake, I have a tail that wiggles, and the upper half of me is completely straight and never bends.
Nice.
It is disgusting.
Mystery Dungeon Ekans needs to be its own character. Mystery Dungeon Ekans for Smash.
I have my doubts, but I have my hope
Straight Ekans.
that a Mystery Dungeon Explorers DX would come out somewhere in the middle of the Switch 2's life. A supplement for the gap between Gen 10 and 11, or maybe even 11 and 12. Perhaps 2028 to coincide with the 20th anniversary of its original global release.
Oh yeah, that makes sense. So is that where we are right now? Are we kind of like, are we a little beyond Gen 10?
Yeah, by this point, Gen 10 is a year or two old by the time this comes out. Gen 11 hasn't been marketed yet, but there are rumors.
But as we receive those rumors, what is going to be the next mainline game after the DLC for Gen 10? Because that following holiday, they're going to need a real, actual game for us to buy. What's it going to be? It's got to be a remake, right? That's basically what they're doing now. It's the 3 they're going to alternate between.
That's indeed what I think. The Gen 5 Remake's 2028 release, built in the Gen 10 engine. Pokemon Deep Black and Vast White. Those are the Pokedex categories of Zekrom and Reshiram, after all. Though Ebony Black and Ivory White sound a lot cooler.
I don't know if they do. I prefer the former, personally. They're both good, though. Here's the thing, though. You're making a real bold prediction here, saying that it's going to be built in the same engine. Because if I recall correctly, the last time they did a remake,
Oh, yeah.
it turned out the way that it did. That's all I'll say about that. So, do you actually have high hopes for a remake? Like an actual, real reimagining that actually makes the game better in any way at all? Is that, I mean, I hope that's what they do.
Yeah. I feel like they would want to go the Brilliant Diamond and Shining Pearl route, going like just a one-to-one remake, but did they learn their lesson? Did they see the outcry? Did they have the statistics of how many people actually played the game too? Like, I bought both games because I'm a Pokatuber and that's what I gotta do.
I'm sorry.
But I started it and I put it down within the hour and never touched it again. They see that.
It sold so well, man. It sold so well.
But how many people actually put in the playtime? How many people bought it, but then it left a bad taste in their mouth? You know?
I don't know. Do they care?
That's the question. Because I really hope that they'll go with the braver option. Remaking it from the ground up in a format similar to Sword and Shield, with the same story and the same Pokemon. Maybe they'll incorporate the changes that Black 2 and White 2 made, most of which were made specifically to address people's main complaints with the first ones. But then you gotta wonder, like, will we ever see Black 2 and White 2 again? Will there be like a story DLC that adds its events, which canonically take place a few years later? Or will Black 2 and White 2 just be forgotten, kind of like Mario Galaxy 2 in that Mario collection?
Yeah, it's
Or worse. What if they're sold as their own games a year or two later?
Oh no.
I shudder at the thought.
I do as well. But hey, I mean, what they did was,
Especially if they're given the BDSP treatment.
yeah, because clearly, like, it just doesn't even matter at that point. It was just like, this is so cheap, it just doesn't even matter at all. That's the thing, is they did those games so dirty, not even having Emerald stuff in there. So like with black 2 and black and white, yeah, like there's only one chance to give us like the black 2 and white 2 stuff. I don't know if there, I would hope at least like DLC of black 2 and white 2 later. I mean, that's just another opportunity to sell more stuff. So like they'd be silly not to. I mean, I eventually they're going to get to the 3DS titles and they're going to have to remake those. And those already are just a little bit more, 3D moving camera and stuff.
A lot more work.
Right, exactly. So maybe with black and white, they're going to see this as one last opportunity to do the really, really cheap, like chibi, basically Brilliant Diamond and Shining Pearl. They may do that again just because it's the final chance that they have to do like a really super simple remake.
I can absolutely see that. It's the last like grid-based one.
Yeah, exactly. Not that they're going to like go over the top with the ones that come after that, but like... Yeah. I mean, like, I don't think any Pokemon product has ever made them more money than Brilliant Diamond and Shining Pearl. It has to have been a drop in the bucket to develop, and yet it's still sold so well. So, like, yeah, I don't have super high hopes for Black and White, unfortunately.
Gotta be the negative Nancy to my...
I gotta.
Positive Pete.
Sorry, Pete.
Well...
You knew what you signed up for when you married me.
Yeah. It's been good otherwise, though.
So what's next? What else do we got? So it's whatever the case, whatever form it's going to take, it's definitely going to be black and white remakes next. Okay, so here's a question. So we're kind of reaching kind of the mid-generation point. And I guess I've already kind of asked it, but like if we're kind of going this like mainline remake Legends, do you think that they're going to maintain that? Or do you think at any point, I mean, I guess you'll get there eventually. You probably got your whole like plan here. Are they going to throw us a curveball and give us some, rather mainline DLC, remake, Legends? Do you think that'll just be that twice and that'll be the generation?
I hope so. That sounds very fun. Because, yeah.
I mean, it makes sense. They've been essentially doing that and it works. Now it's 4 years between like each of these things, so they have a lot more time to work on.
So I do think 2029... we will see a Pokemon Legends game if ZA does well enough.
It will.
Though it'll also be a year that we get a port of Pokemon Sleep that no one asked for.
Whoa, nice.
And another Pokemon added to Smash as DLC.
A DLC Pokemon, you think so? Yeah.
But yes, absolutely a new Legends game in 2029. I would assume one set in a classic Johto, mixing the settings of the previous 2 Legends games. Your player character gets isekai'd to the past by a time-traveling Celebi to around the same time or a bit before Legends Arceus. But rather than an open wilderness like Hisui, it's more of an urban setting like ZA, but the cities are made of wood, akin to those in the late Edo period. Or perhaps it's a blend. Perhaps the early 1800s Goldenrod, Ekrutik, and Violet City, as well as the wilderness between all 3 of them. The dilemma? Someone else from the future unlocked the power of the ruins of Alph, manipulating the unknown to travel to this time as well, similarly to Volo and Ingo in PLA. But this person is intent on changing history, and Celebi wants your help to stop it. Your starter Pokemon are Snivy, Poplio, and Litten, completing the Gen 2, 5, and 7 starter trios that the first 2 Legends games used. And this is all perfectly fitting, because this part of Japan was at a major turning point at this time in history. The huge black ships of Portugal and America were posing more and more of a threat, and saying, "Open the country, stop having it be closed." Perhaps the antagonist, later revealed to be an older Silver, is here to try to stop Johto and Kanto from opening. He wants to keep them closed because then maybe his family and Team Rocket would be even more wealthy and more powerful in the future, or just still together, because even the bad guy just misses his family.
We're all humans. Well, I'm not, but you know what I mean. If I didn't know any better, I'd say that you already had that figured out. I think you already planned that whole idea. I don't think you just came up with that off the top of your head.
That's true. I wrote it down.
I'm calling you out. Okay, so what time period did you say that was going to be again?
Early 1800s, which is just a bit before what Legends Arceus did.
So when did Arceus take place?
The mid 1800s. Of course, it doesn't give any exact.
Was it really?
It doesn't give any exact dates, but the vibes and the history. So like the plot of Legends Arceus is like your people from mainland Japan, from Kanto and Johto and all those, going up to Hisui, which is Hokkaido, and then all of the events happen, and then Hisui gets renamed to Sinnoh at the end. In the mid-1800s, Japan did literally that. They reformed their government, sent all their people up north to Ezo, and then did all their stuff there, and then renamed it to Hokkaido. And like the stuff they were doing was the same kind of thing. They're going through, they're registering all of the animals, they're writing down all of its resources, exploring the whole island, and then incorporating it into their country. Plus, it's the same technology level. That's
so interesting. You really got this all figured out. That's funny. I really imagined that it took place a lot earlier. And I really do like this idea. And First Legends, yeah, it's all like pretty much just undeveloped terrain, and then we're going straight to like a high-tech city. I do like the idea of something a little bit more in between. If they were going to go back in time again, I would want to see like city, but like old style city. Yeah, like a marriage of the two ideas. Yeah, with the wilderness in between. I like that idea.
Nice. I was hoping you would. From what I've seen, a lot of people also thought that Legends Arceus took place a lot further in the past, but it's more of a Western perspective. Because in the West, in the 1800s, we had like steam power and trains, and there was metal everywhere. But meanwhile, in the same time period in Japan, like there were still samurais everywhere.
Yeah,
it's the fun fact of like the U.S. Civil War, the Industrial Revolution and all that. Like we had fax machines. Japan still had samurai and wooden skyscrapers, kind of thing.
That's
not skyscrapers, but buildings primarily made of wood.
Yeah, that's really interesting. And you know what? It's almost a shame that it would have to be more or less accurate, because if we are doing another earlier back time, I'd want it like steampunk, like really go like full fantasy. But is that like not in the cards at all? Because they kind of they've been more or less being kind of accurate with this stuff. Do you think there's a little wiggle room there?
There's wiggle room. Like the Pokemon anime gets all kinds of wacky shenanigans. I mean, there's a whole movie that's based around steampunk technology, but it is still set in like the modern day. But I think if they went into the past in one of the Western settings, that it would work. So they've kind of driven themselves into a hole by saying that like Legends Arceus takes place like right after the Pokeball is invented. So like any time before that, what's the gameplay going to look like? There's no Pokeballs.
Yeah, exactly. It basically just can't exist.
So you have like the early 1800s as the absolute earliest point a Pokemon game could realistically take place, unless they retcon stuff, which they always could.
Yeah, they could. Yeah, I don't know. I would love it to be like this middle ground where it's like the modern world is kind of like finally invading, and like trains. I would love to see like trains all over the place. That'd be fun.
Be like a Zelda Spirit Tracks, but you catch Pokemon on the way.
Rad. I would love that.
Oh, or like the old West where people just shot buffalo and bison from the side of a train. It's that, except you're throwing Pokeballs.
Yes! Oh my gosh! You're riding the train and because it's a Legends game, so you're just throwing the That's funny. That's perfect. There's Tauros everywhere, and you're throwing. That's exactly the kind of little
thousands
nod
of
they
buffalo.
would do. Yeah, exactly.
But yeah, so that's the big 2029 release, and I feel like they might want to release the next big game the following year, but maybe not. 2030, mostly a quiet year. We'll probably see an all-new Pokemon spin-off game around this time, something Unite-esque, another multiplayer action game, be it the leaked and rumored Splatoon-like one, or maybe even something completely different, like a Pokemon racing game with a focus on parkour, dodging attacks, attacking opponents, working as a team. Like Rapidash might be fast, but it swims and climbs terribly. Something that a Samurott or Passimian could make up for.
That's kind of cool.
I'm thinking like a cross between Sonic Team Racing and Rayman Arena for that deep cut game that no one remembers. Or you can think of it as like Pokemon Dash, but fun. Yeah. Did you ever play Pokemon Dash?
I did not play Pokemon Dash, no.
It's terrible.
Is it terrible?
Yeah. You know that motion that you do with the DS stylus where you just like draw the same line over and over again?
Yeah.
That's the whole game.
Ugh. Yeah, I don't want to play that. That doesn't sound fun. But now we have mouse controls. You can just drag. It'll be like drag and drive. You just drag the mouse over and over again. That sounds great.
Ew! Don't make me think of that.
It's entirely mouse-controlled Pokemon game. Well, I mean, like, yeah, I really do think that's a good point. That's a really good thing to predict. They're not ever going to stop making live service free-to-play Pokemon games. They're going to keep throwing them out there and seeing what sticks. There will never come a time when they're not cooking up some other new free-to-play live service Pokemon. So, I can see that.
Yeah, and it's a good filler between a Legends and a mainline game. Because I think 2031, we're talking Gen 11.
2031, Gen 11.
Yes, that is my prediction. Write it down on a board and then forget that it's there until 2031 rolls around and you're like, whoa, wait, I wrote this down, and then I rub it on everyone's faces. Haha, I predicted this.
I mean, the math adds up. If we're going the 4-year cycle, then yeah.
So, what I imagine people would have loved most about Gen 10 is how wide open and explorable its waters were, and hoping to mimic some of that success, but differentiate it, Gen 11 has basically no water at all. We're talking vast plains, hot deserts, dense forests, or great mountains. Something like the Australian outback, or central China, or the Utah, Colorado, Wyoming area, Kalutaming, or something like that.
7.8 out of 10. Not enough water. Drive that meme into the ground. So I like that idea. I really like the idea because, like, they've finally gone open world. They've finally, like, made it a big thing. But there is still this kind of feeling that all of these locales are just kind of like little playgrounds to run, like little like amusement parks where you just run around and find Pokemon in. I like the idea of it being a lot more focused on the environment, so that when you're out in the environment, it feels more like an adventure game. When you are out, like I am actually out climbing a mountain. Like, this is real. I'm here. It's not just like I'm walking around and it's a toy store, where Pokemon are just kind of wandering. Take your pick.
Absolutely. And I think with the Switch 2's power at this point, having already released a mainline game in the series, its sequel, the second Switch 2 mainline game, will put its power to use by just making it as big and wide and open as possible. In a good way, though. In a similar manner to, like, Arc. Maybe they could introduce secret bases again, which I think Gen 4 was the last gen that did that. But instead of being secret, they're, like, built, like the bases in Arc or Fallout 4's settlements. And it's all to help Pokemon in the wild breed. There's some rare Pokemon that could really use a boost in population, and building suitable shelters for them is a great way to do that, but there's Pokemon Raiders, an evil organization of rare Pokemon poachers. And so in a similar way to battling Team Star in Scarlet and Violet, you defend these bases from time to time, as well as build up their defenses and leave some of your Pokemon at them to boost their defense while you're away, which it all just takes advantage of just how open a lot of the areas are. I don't want to bring up Pal World again.
Please do that.
Bringing up Pal World. Maybe Pokemon's already been planning a game like this, and then Pal World came, and well, now if Pokemon did it, they would say, oh, Pokemon's just ripping off Pal World, and so that's why they're trying to sue them into oblivion.
I mean, Pal World did it pretty good, I'm not gonna lie. I like the whole having a base thing, having your pals do stuff for you, so I really do like this base idea. When you say that, though, when you, like, mention the bases, because originally it was, like, kind of a social thing, because, like, the games could, like, I did a Ruby and Sapphire, and they could, like, share data, right? So, like, if you fight someone, and then you go to that location in the world, you could, like, find them and their secret base, and that was the coolest thing. So, like, you could have, like, bigger bases that you build up, and it's, like, a much bigger thing, a more permanent part of the map. But when you mention it, my mind goes to, all right, well, it's Switch 2. We're going way more with game chat and everything. I'm seeing, like, a more, like, online element. So maybe bases that are a little bit easier to move around so that it's not weird when one pops up. Because then it can be, like, Dark Souls style, where there's, like, player ghosts everywhere. I mean, I guess they did that in, like, Sword and Shield as well, didn't they? Where, like, you can see the other players. So then if the bases are at least a little bit more mobile, then, like, you're cruising around and there's, like, other people's bases. Your friends' bases are around, and it's just, I don't know, like, if there's just enough flexibility, then they can turn it into a really big social element. But if it is integrated into the story, then it is going to be a lot more, like, more that. like it's gonna have to lean into that way. So yeah, I don't know. I can kind of see it going both ways. I love the idea though. I love the secret base thing.
It could be just that it's fully integrated into the story, but then once the story's over, at that point, the multiplayer stuff opens up.
Yeah, or it could be like you have a primary base or you have primary story bases, but then you have like your pop-up camp, you know, kind of like in Scarlet and Violet, you've got picnics. Well, now it's like a little, you know, temporary fort that you pop up, and that's where you can see other people and trade and talk with them and stuff. Maybe like a mix between the two.
Yeah. And a part of keeping it simple, it could always just be like, well, there's only so many predetermined areas that they can be built in, and they have to like fit in the confines that they have.
Yeah, like flat ground.
So that no
or
matter
something.
what, like it'll always load in properly because the ground in these areas is always flat or the same in some way.
Yeah, I like that a lot because
keep it standardized.
yeah, because like, you know, like I said, I like the idea of a bigger world that feels a little bit more like real. So then like if you give me an open world Pokemon game that feels like a real world and I'm able to create like a base up in the mountains and it's like just my base and I get to like live up there with my Pokemon friends, you have completed the Pokemon experience. Like that's peak Pokemon for me.
The dream that we've all had since we've been kids.
Like that's it. You have given me the perfect virtual world now. I especially if there's like a cool social element, I never want to leave. That's the only Pokemon game I'll ever need.
So, the following year, 2032, we'll get Gen 11's first DLC. It'll probably focus a lot more on just new parts for bases, as well as, you know, there will be a new area, but it won't be anything huge or spectacular. Probably fly you out somewhere especially wet, exotic, jungly, smaller, but more detailed than the open plains.
Okay.
There's probably going to be some new Pokemon puzzle game on mobile, and it gets a Switch port too.
Yeah.
But it was definitely intended for iOS and Android, so it's a bit clunky on the Switch.
Seems realistic enough.
And this will be the year that Detective Pikachu becomes a trilogy.
Really?
With Detective Pikachu Homecoming.
Detective Pikachu Homecoming. And this is a video game you refer to, not a movie?
Correct. Though, now that you mention it, by this time, Detective Pikachu 2 will probably be out, the movie.
See, that is a bold prediction that we're going to get another Detective Pikachu. Because again, spoilers for an upcoming video, I'm talking about the worst-selling Switch games. And Detective Pikachu did not sell well.
But it's also really cheap to make.
It is, and that would be the hope, but like it's at like almost the bottom of the list. It sold like trash.
Oh no.
So I don't know. It sold very poorly. Like possibly in like a couple 100,000, something like that. We don't have exact numbers.
Honestly, I haven't even looked at that. That is terrible news.
No, it was bad. It was really, really bad.
Well, now I'm sad.
Yeah. I hope you're right though. For those like 200,000 people who bought it, I hope they get a sequel.
Because like the second game did a really good job closing up a lot of the, what are they called? Loose strings, the loose ends that the plot of the first one had.
Loose ends, yeah.
But it still ended with like a weird cliffhanger where like Pikachu and Harry are finally separated, and then they're like walking along showing like, oh, it's such a good day, everything's perfect, but then something is off. Something is wrong and not right, and Pikachu's like, what's going on? Is any of this real? And then the game stops. like what was that for?
Wow.
Just out of nowhere.
One of the characters just goes, hey, wait a minute, was this all a dream the whole time? And then it just ends, cut to credits.
That's almost what it felt like. But at some point in the future, they'll try Detective Pikachu one more time just to finish off a trilogy of games. And this one, Detective Pikachu Homecoming, features an almost entirely talking Pokemon cast. It turns out that the ending of Detective Pikachu Returns was weird and stuff because it is weird and stuff.
Wow.
The big explosion at the end of the game that supposedly is what separated Harry and Pikachu's bodies and souls from each other did indeed harm Pikachu. The game had frequently alluded to Pikachu's soul being erased while Harry's took over fully. And this idea would make the post-credits scene of that game make sense, because at this point, it's not real. Pikachu is in a coma. This is all a dream. Pikachu's soul is missing. Where is it? Why, working for the Pokemon Spirit Realm Detective Agency led by a Dusk Noir, of course.
Wow. These games are wild. The fact that you're even considering this means these games. That is interesting.
This could potentially lead to some like ghost trick like puzzles in the game. If you know that game, it was like a really popular DS detective game where you played as a dead guy.
Yeah, so you're dead. It's Pikachu ghost trick. You're dead Pikachu. You're like, that's amazing.
Yeah, you gotta figure out how to get back to your body. It's just in a coma somewhere.
How you can't drink coffee as a ghost.
Yeah.
That's the main driving force of the game, is he needs to get back to his body so he can have a coffee.
Mm-hmm. Like there's a tiny bit of Harry's soul still in him, so he still has that coffee-obsessed personality.
You know what? I hope this happens. I really do. I need this too.
I sincerely do. I doubt it now, knowing how terribly it sold.
Yeah. I mean,
the movies.
You could argue that
it'll promote the movie.
You could argue that they could have handled the whole thing better and made it a more appealing product, but whatever. I suppose that's a whole separate conversation. Mm-hmm. So we're getting close to the end of the generation now.
Absolutely. There's only one more year left in my ideas notes list.
And if we're hold on, so we've got two. So does that mean it's time for another remake? What is this? You lead the way. What are we doing now? What's the next year?
Early 2023, or 33, yes. Early 2033, the last bit of Pokemon juice will fill the Switch 2, as Nintendo's next console is slated to release in 2034, along with a new Legends game on the new console. Perhaps doing...
It's gonna be another cross-gen.
It could very well be another cross-gen, if they're released close enough.
Switch 3 edition.
By this point, either 2032 again, or early 2033, Gen 11's second DLC comes out, which sends us to the Ore region. The Pokemon Coliseum and... The Ore region, O-R-R-E, which is the region from Pokemon Coliseum and Gale of Darkness.
I forgot that had its own region. Okay.
Yeah, the region is based on Arizona.
Is it really?
It's an homage to those games because this is the year that those games turn 30. The Ore region turns 30.
Oh, okay.
And I mean, if the main game is based in like Wyoming, Utah, Colorado, then like Ore is right there. It is within walking distance. The DLC could literally just zoom out on the map and oh hey, there's the Ore region.
Oh, okay, cool.
Plus, considering how unusual those games did their region, because it's like a weird, linear, traditional JRPG as opposed to a traditional Pokemon game, the DLC, this DLC that takes us to the Ore region can take all of the liberties it wants, really. Just make sure the landmarks are in the right place and do whatever they want for the rest. Really easy stuff.
Good.
Plenty open, more spots for bases, all that.
Yeah, lots of spots for bases. I like that.
And then that's the last major Pokemon thing on the Switch 2. Those are my predictions of what Pokemon will do throughout the Switch 2's life.
This is almost an aside. Feel free to, cut it, whatever. But here's the thing. I've been following you and your activities for a while now, and you tend to have the best theories. And you always pick up on all of these clues that are in the games. And I watch your videos, and they're so convincing because you dive so deep, no stone left unturned, and you're like, the next region, everything in this game is communicating that it's going to take place in this place, and then it doesn't. And so I don't even know what my question is. How about this? How about like Gen 10, that is the one that we're coming up on. How confident are you in your predictions this time? Because I was so convinced after Sword and Shield. You do such a good job.
Mm-hmm. I remember I said it was probably going to be India or something like it. Jungly.
Yeah, and but every sign was pointing to that. And it's not even to say like, oh, well, you were wrong because you did a bad job. No, you're doing a good job. Clearly, if there is anything to glean from the games, you're gleaning them. So how confident are you in your Gen 10 predictions? Do you think, did you see where you went wrong before? Did you kind of see where the clues were? I've been wanting to ask you this forever.
I'm pretty confident in the Gen 10 prediction of it being very watery because that was in the leaks.
Oh, because it was in the leaks. Okay. Cheater!
What isn't in the leaks, though, is exact location.
The big blue wet thing.
I would... If I had to limit my guesses to 2, I would say Greece and New Zealand.
What about what are the clues, the Pokemon themselves? Because you pick up on the little cultural stuff. What clues do we have?
Well, it's the 10-year anniversary of Sun and Moon, and New Zealand is where the Maori people like originated, the people that eventually went to colonize Hawaii.
Okay.
But also there's the big main Pokemon of the DLC, Terapagos. There's like carvings and stuff in Area 0 that show like theoretically show like this is one of 2 Terapagos. There's another one on the exact opposite side of the world. And if you literally like pole to pole, if you have one of the poles in the middle of Iberia, so in the middle of Spain, the other end is the northern island of New Zealand, which also has a giant crater in the exact center of it, which is actually a lake. But
yeah, wow. That's solid. That's pretty solid right there.
But of course, Game Freak are the master of leaving little breadcrumbs and clues and then not doing anything with them.
Yeah, clearly. That's clearly. And yeah, so you were saying, where's Galapagos? I'm so bad at geography. Where's Galapagos Islands again? Where is that?
The Galapagos Islands are in South America.
Okay, so that would be but that's a watery place though.
That's true.
That you said that was on the list of possibilities, right?
Yeah, I also said here are my top 5 guesses, and then I listed 16 things.
There's also SoCal.
Yeah,
which would be cool. You get like an LA version.
Yeah, that's where the next like Pokemon championships are based. What a perfect time to announce that it's also where the next games are going to be placed.
Yeah, makes sense.
This is more so a wish list than it is anything solid, but wish lists are fun. I love doing them.
Wish lists are very fun. I also love doing them.
Yeah, I love watching you do them.
Thank you. I love watching you do them too. I like speculation. I'm not happy with the present. I live in the future. Gotta guess what the future is gonna be.
What could be?
What could be? So is that everything you've got? Is that the entire Switch 2 generation for Pokemon?
Yes, that is what Pokemon will be on the Switch 2.
It's a good generation. It's solid. I give it a B.
Cool.
If it goes that way, 8 years from now, I'm gonna look back and be like, all right, solid B.
So now I extend the question to all of you who are watching. Which of my ideas do you think is the silliest and will never ever happen ever? And which do you really want to see happen?
Something to ponder.